So by the time the meeting's over, we hope to have you all signed up. That is going to be a very important date in August 8th. And we're going to dig into that tonight. So thank you all for coming. If you're here for the first time, let us know about that. Put first time in capital letters so we can see that right away. So I'm coming to you from just outside DC. And so tonight we will have someone inspire our meeting to begin with, and then we will have a report about Lobby Day. And then we will have our speaker who will dig deeper into our action alert from this month. And then at the end, we're going to do an action with Judy Burlfine from Encinitas, California, to get started on our action alert on Capitol Hill. So that's our agenda for today. And we always start our meetings. How many of you are here for the first time? Raise your hand so I can see. Great, welcome, Elise. Anybody else? Let's see, we have 2 pages here. Anyone else? Raise your hand. George Goldman, great. Thank you. Thank you for being with us tonight. So let me introduce our inspiration tonight. Natan Margalit is a rabbi and scholar with 30 years of experience in teaching, writing, organizing, and congregational leadership. He was raised in Honolulu and spent 12 years as a young adult in Israel, where he received rabbinic ordination. He earned a PhD in Near Eastern Studies at UC Berkeley, and he is now the chair of the Rabbinic Text Department and interim dean of faculty at the Aleph Ordination Program. He's also director of the nonprofit Organic Torah, and he's the author of The Pearl and the Flame, A Journey into Jewish Wisdom and Ecological Thinking from 2022, brand new book. 2 years old. He lives in Newton, Massachusetts with his wife and 2 sons. And thank you, Natan, for being with us tonight and inspiring our meeting and our activists. I think you need to unmute.
There you go. I'm unmuted now. Okay, thank you, Devorah. It's a pleasure to be here and to at least see you all in your boxes. And so as you said, I'm gonna say a few things really from my book, that not directly from my book, but the same inspiration, and I hope it does relate to what your speaker will speak about. The questions of energy transmission, and my assumption is, and I don't know at all, but my assumption is that it will have something to do with looking at the system and not just looking at breaking things down into their little individual smallest parts. And that is key to the way I understand the world. It's what I write about in my book, The Pearl and the Flame. And it really is this idea of the need to shift from a sort of post-scientific revolution approach to the world, of looking at the world as a machine which can be broken down into smallest parts, as opposed to the way most traditional and indigenous cultures look at the world, which is by looking at the relationships and looking at the whole. And that's the way I think Judaism looks at the world, or has looked at the world in its traditional mode of thought. So I have a few things that I was going to share. Let me see if I can put this into the chat, and then you can all just have it on your screen. Let me see if I can do this a PDF, and let's see if this works. So it's in your chat, but in any case, let me just share screen. So I just titled this this little source sheet, holiness and practicality of seeing the whole, or
Can you make it a bit bigger?
Okay.
Try and do that. There
Okay. Or systems thinking and Jewish wisdom come together. So let me just start with this is one of my really go-to Sfarim books, Hasidic Sefer, called the Derech HaMelech by the Piasetzner Rebbe. And many things to say about this, and this is just a tiny little piece. And it basically, without really reading the whole thing, he's saying that looking at anything in the world, really anything that you open your eyes to, you can see on some level that as you have the choice to see it as an individual thing, separate, as just simply a thing, an object, or you can see it as a trace of that oneness that was before creation. And this is an experience that I think many of us have of looking at the world through the eyes of when we say, Shema, Adonai Echad, it's all one. And it uplifts us and gives us a sense of we are part of a whole, which is beautiful and holy. And that really is a spiritual sense. I think it's a key to our spiritual lives, is understanding that we are parts of a whole. And when we see that, and when we're in a place where we can feel that wholeness, say we're walking in a forest or an ocean beach or any place where we see how things fit together, we get a sense of holiness, that we sense that wholeness. And so that's on a spiritual level, but on a very practical level, we can see all sorts of, and these are just a tiny, random examples, that these are things that I do speak about in my book, where that shift from the thing, the individual small thing, to the whole makes a huge difference. Looking at gun violence, for example, we have such a, there's this sort of widespread perception of, like, from that individual level, I'm scared, I should get a gun. In fact, what we know from the system's point of view is that the more people who have guns, the more people will want guns, and it's a vicious cycle, and it ends up being more dangerous and not more safe. Addiction. One of the interesting experiments by this Professor Bruce Alexander talks about the experiment of Rat Park, where they were studying addiction in rats in the lab, and they would give them, in their regular lab cages with one rat, they would press the lever and get the cocaine, and they would get addicted. But what happened when they came into this rat park, which was filled with things to play with and other rats and a full social environment? They tried it and they didn't get addicted. Same with human beings. When we are in strong communities, feel these connections, much less chance of becoming addicted than when we are lonely and isolated. Healthcare, same thing, looking at Costa Rica, for example, which emphasizes public health. Despite being not nearly as wealthy as the United States, better health results, whereas the United States emphasizes expensive treatments of individuals. They emphasize the group, the whole. Climate change, which is what we're concerned with right now here, the famous feedback loops. And the fact is that climate change is such a systems problem. It's not as easy for people to grasp as acid rain or save the whales or some of these in the so-called good old days of environmentalism, when you had one photogenic thing you could talk about. It's a systems thing. And that's one of the things that we need to shift our way of thinking. Shifting our way of thinking to looking at the whole, to looking at the relationships, both brings us into the forefront of where modern thinking is going, with systems thinking, changing fields all throughout many different fields of study, but it also brings us back to our traditional roots, to the way Judaism has always thought. So my blessing for us tonight is that we are able to grasp the whole, that interwoven relationships that create life, holiness, and flourishing in our world. And so may we be blessed, and maybe we inspired tonight to grasp that whole and to feel that uplifting holiness.
Oh, I'm into that, Natan. Thank you very much. Light is what we all seek in the spiritual sense and the technological and practical sense as well. The second blessing of the priesthood.
Exactly.
May God, may your light shine, life be bright.
I love that. I love that, and because it really is. It's like when we open our eyes to God's presence, to that light which is there, if we open our eyes to it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming, visiting us tonight.
Thanks.
So our next speakers are from our steering committee. Dr. Phyllis Blumberg and Rabbi Melanie Aaron are going to talk to us about the August Lobby Day and start to get us prepared for that.
All right. So Phyllis and I have been working away. It's been time to get ready, even though our Lobby Day is not until August 8th. We begin preparing, and we're pleased to report we have 2 college interns this year who we will be introducing at our next webinar. So what's special about our Lobby Day? Well, one of the things that's very special is that we make it really easy for you to come and join us in lobbying. We arrange the meeting, whether with the senator or with the staff. The meetings are usually short, only half an hour. We will help provide talking points so that you feel prepared. And it's not so hard to do this. We will do more preparation at the July webinar. You'll get to meet with the other people from your state. And there will be a lead who will be the master of ceremonies, as it were, at the meeting. And you'll be welcome to have a speaking part or not have a speaking part, depending on what feels most comfortable to you. So right now in the chat, there is a link. Go and register. We would love to have early registration. It makes it so much easier for us to know what states we're working in and to arrange our appointments, because they often ask who from my state is coming. And once you've registered, we would love for you to send an email. So it's not rude, even while I'm talking. Take a moment while you're sitting now at your computer, start an email to a friend or a relative who you think might be interested. Extra bonus points if they are not in one of the 5 states with the largest Jewish population, those states being New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Florida, or California, though of course we welcome people from those states as well. But what really helps us is if people register in advance so that we can identify the states where we'll be lobbying so that we can set up the appointments. So I'm not offended if you keep doing that, even as I continue speaking a little bit. So I'm sure you got the link now, and we welcome you to sign up. We are really fortunate that we have a large number of co-sponsors already. If you see an organization that you belong to on this list, we would love for you to reach out to that organization and remind them to reach out to all the other members and let them know about Lobby Day coming up. And if the organization that you're affiliated with isn't on this list yet, we'd love for you to reach out to them and invite them to be co-sponsors. There is no financial obligation in being a co-sponsor. We ask our co-sponsors to inform their membership about Lobby Day, to send out registration information, but they don't have to make a financial commitment. So sometimes that makes it easier to get your organization on board if there's no money involved. On the left-hand side, I had wanted to give you a running tally as we were sitting here at the meeting that would kind of keep flipping as all of you registered, but I am not quite that tech savvy, so I apologize. That's just a frozen view of people who've been registering already, but we hope that even as I'm talking right now, you're registering, you're sending emails to your friends, you're starting emails, even if they sit for a while and you finish them later this evening. Some things that you should know: most of the meetings will be on Thursday, August 8th, but we often don't get an exact time until about a week before. We're trying to set up appointments even right now, but often, especially if we're going to meet with the senator or even the staff, They don't like to make commitments too far in advance. The congressional legislation is in flux. All of you know what's going on in Congress right now, but the message is very important that regular people care about climate change, and we want you, our senator staff, to act now. It's a really important message speaking about our personal motivations and our religious values. Very important. Building an ongoing relationship with our senators and the staff members who work in this area is really important. We will be focusing on preventing pushback on the environmental successes that we have had in recent years. We'll be talking more about CRAs, the Congressional Review Act, and how unfortunately they can undo a lot of the good work that has been done. Congress uses this tool to overturn rules by federal agencies. They were used 20 times in the past, 16 of them in 2017, 2018. We may or may not be talking about the Farm Bill. It might be passed. It might be pushed off for another year, or it may be under discussion, and we're monitoring that all the time. We especially want to make sure you know that the July webinar will be focused on preparing for our lobby day. You'll get to meet your state delegation. And did I mention that Congressman Jamie Raskin has confirmed that he will be speaking with us? You don't want to miss this. He's an important member of the Congress. He has a lot to say. He really values the involvement of citizens in our legislative process, and he'll talk about why that's so important. So again, I'm just going to run back just for 1 second to that registration slide. Register now. Invite your friends and relatives to register now. We'd love to have people from all around the country. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Melanie. And I want to give you 30 seconds to register if you haven't already. So I could sing the TikTok Club. The song. Da, 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 da. What's that show? What show is that from? So take the time to register now. What is it? Jeopardy. Yes. So take the time to register now while we have your attention. We would love a really great turnout, and it'll be great when Jamie Raskin comes to speak to us. We have a little bit of an in. Half of our steering committee, or about a third of our steering committee, he's our representative, so he knows us well and has been very supportive of Jewish Earth Alliance. People do ask, well, if my senator's with me all the way on climate, why should I bother? He says, oh no, send me your stories, because I use them to convince my reticent colleagues. I use personal stories to help them make decisions in the right direction. And also it gives them a boost. It gives them and their staff a boost. So there are many reasons why we form relationships, even with the people who agree with us. But if you know somebody who has a second home, if you have a second home in another state, you can register for that state. We can have a meeting with that state senator. So let us know if that's the case for you. If you happen to have a cabin in Minnesota, or on a condo in, let's see, where are the states right? In Nevada, New Mexico. All right. Okay, so let's move on. Dr. Phyllis Blumberg, also from our steering committee, is going to, let me hand you the mic. Phyllis, here you go. And she's going to introduce our speaker tonight, who's going to give us more depth on our action alert. Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm really pleased to introduce Nancy LaPlaca. She has worked on the energy regulation and climate issues for nearly 20 years, and she's worked in public policy for nearly 40 years, but she's not that old. She started when she was 6. She was a policy advisor to a state public utilities commissioner and the U.S. Department of Energy, Sierra Club, Clean Air, North Carolina, the Illinois Solar Energy Association, and on and on and on. She's worked with 2 members of Congress, clerked at the Court of Appeals, and created and taught 3 university-level courses on climate and energy. I wish I had taken them, but we're age contemporaries. She inspires me and educates me. So I'm going to pass the mic over to you, Nancy, and thank you.
Oh, Phyllis, thank you. And thank you all. It's very inspiring. Yes, I am 68 this year, and so happy to be part of Third Act and working with lots of great people and meeting lots of great people like the Jewish Earth Alliance. So let's see. Oh, I first have to just hit share. Share. Let's see.
It's usually green down at the bottom.
Yeah, there it is. Can you see it now, guys? Can you see that now? Very good.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to talk pretty fast here, folks. And a lot of what I put on the slides, I'm not going to go into detail, just in case you want to go into more detail yourselves. And really, you know, one thing about being in public policy for a long time and in energy issues for 20 years is you kind of get to see the big picture. And here's the big picture. The big picture is that we have incumbent utilities who've been doing this forever, making tons of money on fossil fuels, and they don't want to stop. And what do they really not like? Well, they really don't like solar because solar could eat their lunch. And they really don't like distributed generation. So I want to make something clear too, because I'm going to say some things that are kind of negative about transmission, but we do need it. I recognize that we need it, of course. And the only reason why I'm also going to talk about distributed generation and virtual power plants, which are distributed by nature, virtual means distributed, is that this is the area of energy that needs the most help from us, we the people. The constituency, the money is in the big stuff, nuclear, giant power plants, transmission lines. So let's get started here, and I'm going to time myself so I do not go over. So I want to start with some good news. FERC just made a move that they haven't made in a very, very long time. And they basically passed a rule called Rule Order 1920. There's a link that basically says, hey, a couple important things. One, hey guys, you got to cooperate. Two, you have to have a stakeholder process. Three, you have to use modern technology. And I've got some links on the next page on that. And you have to file these plans and you have to come up with them and let people see them, because really the level of lack of transparency is stunning. There's a group called No Coal, No Gas that we're working with at Third Act. My friend Marla Markham heads them up. And they've been challenging ISO New England, the independent system operator, and FERC. And really, they're so under the radar, these complex, important federal agencies or nonprofits. And it's wonderful and it's sad that we have to have people literally going there and making a fuss or getting arrested, or because we need to do the right thing. This is clear. So let's get back to Order 1920. So here's some links that will tell you more about it. And again, it's a long-term plan. And here is a big win we got, a couple. One is the incumbents don't have the right of first refusal, or ROFR. And what is the ROFR? Well, the ROFR is basically a gift to the incumbent utilities because they are the first ones that can turn it down. Hey, you guys want to build a $100 million transmission line, get a 10% rate of return? Sure, we'll do that. Well, now they don't get the right of first refusal. It goes out to bid. Well, it's about darn time, right? So it's all about competition, a lot of what we're trying to do. The other wonderful thing that happened is the chair of the commission is a guy named Willie Phillips, and he's not really widely seen as a real friend of clean energy. I'd say he's getting kind of dragged, kicking and screaming a little bit. But he made a comment that we have to start taking into account extreme weather. And for these kinds of officials, this is earthquake kind of conversation, you know, extreme weather is real. And it also requires them for the first time to take into account the existing resource mix of the state and state clean energy goals. So let's give you an example. Vermont's got these goals that are like up here, right? but they're part of ISO New England, which is the independent system operator. And ISO New England's goals are right here. So what happens when you've got Vermont's goals here, but ISO's rules here? Well, these are the kinds of debates that we're having. So this slide here that I'm showing you is more linked to specifics, and I just want to point a few things out. One is, see this grid enhancing technologies, all these wonderful acronyms? All it means is gizmos that make it easier to share information and data. It's just a gizmo. It's like your smartphone. It's your smartphone. It's smart, you know? And so there's all these different kinds of technologies that we could use, and this is a link to them. Some of them make existing power lines able to carry more juice. Some of them measure what's in the line. So they say, well, hey, between 4 and 5 p.m., we can put more power in that line. So there's all kinds of ways that utilities, honestly, they didn't want to do it. I've seen some of this stuff go by for 15 years. Why wouldn't the utilities do it? Because they make more money when they build a new power line. And they had right of first refusal. So the system finally is starting to get a little kick in the butt, quite honestly. So it did not list any environmental benefits. We lost on that one. And that's because FERC has not, when we lost the last chairman, Richard Glick, we lost a lot. We lost a lot. FERC is really important. It's one of the most important things in the election, actually, because the president appoints FERC. So let's go to the next one here. So food for thought. This is my opinion. And there's lots of smart people out there on transmission, and I'd be happy to guide people to them if anyone wants to know. And I asked one of the guys the other day, how do I tell the difference between gold plating and what we really need? And some of it's common sense. And transmission is going to get built, but we just need to make sure that it's good transmission. It's transmission we need. And I'll give you one example. There's a line in Arizona, and I lived in Arizona a very long time, 27 years, from New Mexico to Arizona to California for $11 billion to carry wind from New Mexico to California. Now, to me, that is silly. $11 billion is 11,000 megawatts of utility scale solar. That's like 40% more than the total electrical generation of all of the state of New Mexico. And almost twice what Arizona has. So we're making these decisions, honestly. That's why I'm saying we have to look at this stuff. Sometimes unfortunately, it's based on who's making money and not on common sense stuff. And no one likes distributed generation who's an incumbent, because it means the money goes to all these little tiny companies, not to the incumbent utilities. So next steps. Interregional transmission is critical, and thank you guys for working on that, because it also didn't include interregional transmission. And Phyllis and Devorah, afterwards, I'm happy to send you some stuff if you want. There's a good study by NREL that just came out on interregional transmission, and that's the National Renewable Energy Lab. Smart people working their hearts out to bring us clean energy and bring us the science and the technology that we need before climate change really hits us hard. So I wanted to make this point that what needs help also is distributed generation. Solar, rooftop solar, community solar, commercial solar, solar on Walmart, solar everywhere. We need solar. And why don't the utilities like it? Again, because they don't own it. And what is the great thing, about batteries? Batteries make solar far more valuable, because I want to show you a couple of quick charts that the chart tells the story. So I did a slide deck on virtual power plants. The next few slides are from that. And there's the link. Anyone can look and share. And you don't ever have to ask me for permission. Just use whatever. If I didn't put in a source, contact me and I will be sure to find the source. So what's a virtual power plant? Again, this is distributed generation. Again, it's like my smartphone. It's like as if we all had solar on our roofs, but we had to get this special application, our smartphone, so that all of our solar systems could talk to each other. And that way we could be smarter about when to say, okay, there's a heat wave's gonna come in a couple hours. So everybody with batteries, why don't you save that solar electricity? And then when the heat wave comes up in a couple hours, the people with batteries can release it. And really, it's that simple, folks. A lot of it is just on-off switches. So here's the thing, though, that's really interesting about all this stuff that we're getting into. Hot water heaters that they aggregate and they say, okay, everybody in California, all 50,000 hot water heaters that are hooked up to this program, we're going to turn them off so that when we have a grid alert, nobody gets to have their hot water heated. So it's kind of simple on-off stuff like that. And I put a link to an explainer from the US Department of Energy. And again, it's about time shifting load, they call it, so that we could save the solar that we're getting now that we're not using, we could use it later. So let's go. And I put this slide in here. I know some of you guys are from Pennsylvania, like my friend Phyllis. Look how fast Pennsylvania shifted. They were half coal in 2010. And unfortunately, the utilities went to natural gas. And they found every excuse in the book not to do renewables or efficiency. So it can happen fast. Okay, and then this slide I wanted to put in here. Here's a link to show you there's a lot of grid. There's a lot of energy backlogged. So in other words, what's a backlog? Well, what's installed capacity? Let me start with that. You can see right there, it says the word installed. That means how much gas, wind, coal we have installed in the United States in 2010. And how much was in interconnection queues. In other words, waiting to get permission from the grid operator so that they could interconnect their generator, whether it was solar, wind, gas, you see, or other. Now let's go to 2023 on the right. Look at what's installed in the grid. Well, it's up from 972 gigawatts to 1,279 gigawatts. But look how much solar and storage and wind is in the interconnection queues. And this is why we do need transmission, because we need it fast. So let me show you another link here. Grid connection. Oh, whoops. Oops, I will click on a link. Sorry about that. Okay, here's where it's backlogged. You can go back and look later. New York ISO, they got a lot of solar online already, but a bunch of wind. What's the blue here? Storage. So ISO New England, where a lot of people are located, relative to other ISOs, independent system operators, PJM, which is a whole bunch of different states, look how much solar they have backlogged. That's 1,500 gigawatts is 15,000 megawatts. That is almost half the capacity in the entire state of North Carolina. So we're talking large amounts. And then look at MISO, the Midwest part of the state. Oh, that looks like 180 gigawatts to me. So, you know, some of this stuff might help you a little bit later. So next one, here's another page from the Department of Energy. And they did a study. And basically, here's the bottom line. Why can distributed generation save us money? Well, we don't need to build transmission lines, although we do need some transmission lines, right? It's not either or, it's both and. But it could save us money on fuel. It can save us money because then they don't need to build a power plant. Because remember that the change that we're making is from Central Station, a giant power plant way, way far away, either so that we don't see it or we don't breathe the fumes or we don't have the acid rain jump on us or whatever, to a distributed system where it's closer to load, rooftop solar, microgrids, community solar, solar on Walmart, you know, a local solar power plant that's maybe 20 or 50 or 100 megawatts, not 1,000 megawatt nuclear plant. Whoops. So let's see. Batteries need the right incentives. And what are the right incentives? I just wrote this in here. You can't lose money or go bankrupt. I'll tell you, the most crazy thing I've seen in my career is the solar coaster. Boom, 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 boom. North Carolina has more solar than Arizona by quite a lot. Arizona is killing solar so dead that it makes me weep. I could weep. I lived there 27 years. And so they kill batteries because batteries help solar. There's the short version. And there's some links if you're interested. And I think I'm out of time, but I put this one in here because this is about the water heater aggregation, which is really interesting. And yeah, that's it. And this shows you what batteries do. See, this is the California grid. Look at all that solar. Well, now they added batteries so that when everybody comes home at 5 o'clock and turns on their air conditioner, the sun's not shining, but your battery's working. So thank you so much. And I hope I didn't go over time there. And
No,
I
no,
was,
you're good. You're good. What did you mean by killing the batteries? I didn't understand that.
okay, so here's the thing. Think about it. So batteries are a weird,
We'll have some questions and answers, okay? But yeah, so batteries are weird.
batteries are weird in the world of electricity because in the world of electricity, Rabbi, you usually have a generator, a coal plant, a gas plant, a solar system, a wind turbine,
Mhm,
or you have something that saves energy, an
mhm.
energy efficiency program. Maybe they have ice making in a building. That used to be common. So they'd make the ice in the middle of the night and then save it for later.
Mm.
But see, storage is weird because it can do both, right? It can generate electricity. Okay, there's a heat wave going on. Let's let that electricity go into the grid. Or like I said earlier, uh-oh, there's a lot of sun and we're not using it right now. Let's
Yeah.
store it. So the rules for batteries are really key. And I was lucky. I had a front row seat at Public Utilities Commission's hearings watching this all unfold.
Mm.
And so basically what you see is that the utilities change the rate design, how they charge people, what they charge them for, so that they could shut out batteries because batteries are can kill gas peakers right now. What's a peaker?
Mm.
It's a power plant that's a jet engine bolted to concrete. Somebody told me that once. Isn't it great when we just have these short, evocative terms? It's a jet engine bolted to concrete, and it uses a lot of fuel, and it only runs 1 to 5% of the hours in a year because when the utilities really need them, boom, they need them now.
Mm.
And that's why we're seeing a huge, huge build out
Mm.
of natural gas peakers, not just in the Southeast, but also in the West, in places like Arizona and Nevada, where the corruption of the Utilities Commission is off the charts.
Mm.
And there's so much sun.
So I've got a couple questions on the
Yeah.
chat. Jay Futterman says a lot of the backlog for utility scale solar is due to interconnection. ISOs require developers to pay 90% of the transmission expansion costs, makes it unworkable. Can FERC help with that?
Yes, they can, and they should. And that is a great, great point that you made. And thank you for making it.
Yeah.
They're making interconnection so expensive, it's ridiculous. My utility was going to buy a megawatt for 1.2 million. We found out through FOIA requests that the feds were going to pay for half. But the interconnection that they wanted to charge was $740,000 for a $1.2 million solar array. And that's common. And so, yes, you're right. Can FERC help? That's why the presidential election is so important because we need strong FERC commissioners who, you're exactly right, are going to give us the kind of rules that we need so that developers cannot go bankrupt and ride the solar coaster. Oh my God, because you have to have millions just to bid, just to get a seat at the table is ridiculously expensive.
So we have a FERC, self-described FERC nerd on the call, Elise Kaplan in Bethesda. She's at the American Council on Renewable Energy, and she said,
Oh, sorry, it was just a minor point, but I don't want to steal.
no, but what you said,
the ROFR was, yeah, actually we lost the ROFR in Order 1000. Some states have reinstated it, like in Texas, the court overturned it. So there was the proposed transmission planning rule thought about reinstating it in certain cases and then didn't in the final.
Really? So are you saying 1920 didn't get rid of the right of first refusal?
No, it was Order 1000. Yeah.
Oh, it was Order
some,
1000.
yeah.
Okay.
oh,
Yeah.
a technicality.
But there was,
Okay,
but there was,
it's
it was a
gone.
concern because there was like some instances where it'd be reinstated in the proposed rule and then.
Okay, thanks, Elise.
Sorry,
Well,
just minor
no,
nerdy.
you should be doing this one on, and ACOR does great work. I used to go to your meetings
Oh,
sometimes.
thanks. No, yours is fantastic, and I would be much less interesting because I'd be doing the beats. This is great. I love listening to this.
Oh, great. I got the question, what is ROFR? It's right of first refusal, right?
Yeah.
Which means that they ask the incumbent utility if they want to use it first. So Muriel is asking, can you explain what makes who makes the rules? What are the roles of Congress and FERC and the ISOs?
Yeah, it's in a nutshell. Back in the 90s, this country said, let's deregulate everything. Remember, we deregulated the airlines and deregulated everything. So they said, well, let's deregulate energy. So people had this ongoing discussion. And honestly, a lot of times it was about, do public utilities, do deregulated utilities, do they charge a half a cent less or a half a cent more? We have bigger fish to fry now, I'd say. But about 70% of the country is covered by what we call deregulated utilities. And all that means is you're not in a regulated state, and I'm in a regulated state, which is called vertically integrated. And let me explain that and then compare it to deregulated.
Yeah, because it's pretty technical. Technical stuff.
It gets in North Carolina, Duke Energy is the main utility. In fact, they sell electricity to all the other providers who just resell Duke 99% of the time. But so Duke, under old rules called PUCA, the Public Utility Holding Company Act of 1935 or whatever, when the utilities, and at least jump in if you've got better information.
I think that's the right.
Yeah, 1935. It said, look, utilities, you guys are like media. You can't own everybody in one market. Okay, we're in the newspaper and the Twitter feed and everything else. Well, the utilities had the same thing. Sorry, Charlie, you can't own the power plant and the pipeline and the transmission line and the gas contract, and you have your people, but now they can, because under the Bush-Cheney group, I think it was 05, Elise, they got rid of PUCA. So basically you have vertically integrated utilities like Duke Energy. This is why they're so powerful. They go around, they buy gas companies, they own everything and everybody. In deregulated states, what they said was, look, we don't like that. So what we want you to do is unbundle. And unbundle is a great term. And it means that if you can't own everything, the transmission, the generator, the everything. So in deregulated states, the utilities had to divest themselves of the generators. Now, I'm not an expert on deregulated states, so Elise, jump in if you want. But the idea was that the ISOs and the RTOs would provide stakeholder process and transparency, but they haven't. They've failed miserably. So Elise, what would you add to that?
No, there's like the two issues, right? Some of the states deregulated because they wanted to provide competition on the generation side, but actually the concept of an ISO or RTO where you can have one entity that dispatches generation across like a whole wide area, that concept is really good for renewables, right? Because you can have wind really strong in one area. Oh, you can dispatch that, or solar is really strong in another area. But there's been a lot of problems like in the governance, and it depends on the RTO. I think ISO New England is like the most or the least transparent in terms of their meetings, but some others like the Southwest Power Pool is totally open. California is really great. Everything is open. You can log on to CAISO's website and listen to any meetings. PJM and New England are more secretive, so it varies. But the stuff they do, even if you listen to their meetings, it's so complicated and technical that it would be hard for folks to really get involved, because they're talking like, if you think like it would be 20 acronyms every minute, right? It would be so but FERC has said that they kind of defer to the RTOs, and they defer on the basis of them having an open governance process, right? But it's not really that open. So you have this kind of vicious cycle. But a lot of groups have gotten more involved, and there's a lot of local environmental groups are really working on trying to pressure.
And we are, Elise, we're working with groups who want to understand FERC intervention. So I've been diving into it because I've been teaching people how to intervene at the state level for years, at least. But this is new for me. But the Office of Public Participation at FERC
Yes.
Really good. They're
They
really
have
good.
they have great explainers. I can put that in the link. Yeah.
Yes.
It's been like in law for years and years and years,
Yeah.
and like Public Citizen and others finally got this Office of Public Participation set up at FERC, and they're really great, and they have all these explainers. I'll put that in the link if people want to.
Oh, good. We need explainers on this. It's
Yeah.
getting
Yeah, that's great.
into the weeds. Well, we need to move on to our action, but
Okay.
we've got quite a few longer questions here, and I'm wondering if
I
you.
can answer them while you're doing your other stuff and put in written responses.
Oh, that's a really good way to do it. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So you'll look in the chat and see where those are and try, answer them there. Answer them to everybody because everybody's looking at the chat. All right. Well, shoo, it's a lot to get our heads around. But our action alert hopefully will help people do what we do best, which is to give a personal message on the message that we sent to our members of Congress. That's not so technical, but just as a heartfelt message about how we feel about renewable energy and the fact that we need better transmission of it and more efficiency. So thank you both very much. Thank you, Nancy, very much for bringing all your information to our meeting tonight. And I want to turn the mic over to Judy Burlfine from our steering, who is our action, our network meeting action maven. That's your new title, your new portfolio, the maven of action alert at our meetings.
Oh, well, thank you, Devorah. And that was a lot of information today.
Yeah.
And we're going to distill it down to something very, very, very concise so that you can take action yourself and we can have our voices heard. So Amy, if you want to, how are you? I'm having sort of a strange thing with my. Okay, so here's our grid. We're all familiar with all these wires that we see that sometimes are disturbing to see in very pristine environments, but at the same time, thinking about all those solar plants that are sitting out there waiting to be built, we really need to get waiting to be connected. That slide was a little upsetting to think of that big queue and how we need to connect to them. So, okay, next slide, please. So the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, that we've been talking about, regulates how all of this works. And we're going to try and simplify everything that we just heard to make it very easy for you to take your action. So we heard about Order 1920 that was recently released. And basically what it does is it requires transmission providers to plan for the future. And but what it doesn't do, and we would like it to do, is to allow for more interregional power line projects. Because if we connect all of these different power lines together, then if it's nighttime here in California, we can use the, well, I'm kind of going backwards, but you get the point. We can use the power where it's sunny, or if it's nighttime in Arizona and it's still sunny here in California, we can send our power there. So next slide, please. So what we're going to do today, usually we write to our members of Congress, but we're going to write directly to Commissioner Phillips at FERC, willie.phillips@ferc.gov. And we're going to copy the Office of Public Participation, as we just heard about them, and that we want them to know that what we're thinking about and that we want the grid to be in as good a shape as possible. So pull up your email, and this is the gist of the message that you're going to send, but you of course can put it in your own words. So Commissioner Phillips, thank you for passing Order 1920, which allows us to plan effectively for the future. And I urge you to require interregional planning to reduce duplicative, expensive generation capacity. And what makes these messages always more effective is when you add a personal note on why we need a strong grid to transmit all the clean energy that is being generated. So go ahead and write your message, and when you've completed it, put a note in the chat that you have completed. And if you have any questions, you can unmute or you can ask them in the chat.
Okay, go for it, everyone. Everyone is registered for Lobby Day, right?
You can do that after you write your message.
Elisa's saying copy OPP at FERC.gov.
I was just echoing how important that is. Yeah, because you don't know if Phillips
And
is going
there's
to.
a little, Melanie, there's a typo in what you put in the chat.
Yeah, yeah.
It's .gov, not OGB.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's
I
above,
was just echoing that that you have that in there. I think that's
yeah,
important.
yeah. Mirala has a chat right above Melanie's that's got the gov, right? So, okay, so I see. So that's really important. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Melanie. Just put the sample message in the chat. So if you don't want to type it, you can copy it from there.
Is it a Commissioner Phillips? I didn't see the salutation suggestion.
He's chair.
So
Actually,
it's called,
oh, actually, yeah, that's a good point. He's the chair.
oh, here I see it, Commissioner Phillips. So do we call him Commissioner or Chair?
I would call him chair.
Terrific.
FERC.
Thanks for.
FERC Chair Phillips, is that how you would call it, or just Chair Phillips?
I think either would be perfect.
Dear Chair Phillips, I think is fine, or dear, whichever. Yeah.
Is anybody else having trouble cutting and pasting? Copying?
No, I was able to do it
If
successfully.
you use the chat, but not the slide, are you saying you're having trouble? Yeah,
right.
first I tried the slide just for curiosity, but in the chat it will work.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you, Jack. So let us know once you've sent your email.
Yeah.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Fred and Deborah and Phyllis. Thank you, Phyllis, for including a story.
Judy, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm a little confused. It seemed like from what the speaker was saying that the interregional planning was important because you could have more local generation. Does this Order 1920 talk about more local generation? Or, I mean, it's just confusing to me. I understand that you want fewer
Would
wires.
Nancy, maybe Nancy would like to answer that. Otherwise,
Yeah,
I can.
I'd say just take out the room, just take out the word local. You need more transmission. You know, it does get complicated. That's what keeps people out, honestly.
No,
It
I'm,
kinda
I'm,
seems-
I'm still confused.
But
Which,
I'd say,
Wait, I think that, I'm not sure who's asking the question. What's your,
it's Stephanie Jofi.
Stephanie? So I think, Nancy, tell me if I'm hearing you correctly. Local generation is incredibly important, but it's also important that we strengthen the grid. And so what you're writing about relates to strengthening the grid, not so
So
much.
nothing about local generation.
Yeah, we're not writing about local right now. While that's important, we're trying to keep this simple and focused. So
go
maybe,
Judy. Thanks,
And-
Judy.
And how does the strengthening the grid save energy?
well, it's
Why-
not that it saves it, but it's that we have all, as Nancy showed us in those pictures, people have been building solar plants in far-flung places. But if they can't connect to the grid, then the energy from those plants can't get into your homes. So we need to find a way to get the energy from those solar plants to your homes.
Okay, because I didn't understand specifically what we were why we were asking for that. So,
Right, so it's, as Nancy said, it's not either or, it's both and. So we want to put solar on every Walmart and Home Depot and everywhere in your city. But in the event that that's not enough solar and wind, we need to get it from these plants that are built far from your home.
okay, so that energy generated for more rural areas can be
Transmitted to your
transmitted
home,
to,
to your city.
populated areas.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, if somebody.
Could I make a comment, please? This is Bob.
Yeah,
The best example of this is like on the Great Plains areas where there's an awful lot of wind. And there are times when the demand for that wind in that local area is, less than what the wind can generate. So they turn off some of the wind or turn it down or don't let it work as much. So the interregional transmission lines would allow that wind to come either east or west, would allow that electricity. So the windmills wouldn't have to be turned down or turned off.
Mm.
That's the reason for the interregional ties.
Now I understand that. I didn't get that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
So let me just thank everybody for participating tonight. I want to be mindful of the time. We try to keep the meeting to an hour, but you're welcome to stay on a little bit longer. And thanks everybody for your participation. Thanks to Natan Margalit for his inspiration, and to our speaker, Nancy LaPlaca. And just to bless you all with the second priestly blessing. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. May the eternal shine light upon your vision of a bright tomorrow a brilliant future. Tzedek, tzedek, tir dov. Keep pursuing justice with all the passion that you have. And thank you all for coming. And if you haven't signed up for lobbying and the pre-lobbying meetings as well, the instructions for that, please do. And we will see you next month, getting ready for our lobbying day in August. So remember to bring a friend next month. And if you have a second house, or you know somebody in a second house in a purple or a red state, we would love to have a connection with them to get a group going for people from the Republican side of the aisle.